gentlemen, welcome back to In the Zone. Rich Sutter, Pete Coles, the dynamic duo of the hoop world. Folks, great to be with you today. We caught some snow here in Western Mass out of nowhere. We were expecting a little bit, but all of a sudden the skies opened up and the white stuff came pouring down. I know that I speak for a lot of people around here when we say we've seen enough. Seen enough. Great conversation this morning, Pete, with a really good friend, TJ Gasnola. Had a great conversation with him. He's a former AAU icon in the area. Did so much good for so many young people. Just a great guy. And I'm going to try and bring him on the show in the next couple of weeks because we're talking about a fountain of knowledge. You know, we had Hoops Weiss and we had Munch Williams. I mean, this year we're just bringing in some guys that just possess this unbelievable knowledge. And I think our viewers are loving it. So, as always, folks, we jump off into Pete's Corner. Number 1, 2, 3. Pete postulates, coagulates, and capitulates on 3 questions all week. And then he hits me with them 1, 2, 3 on the blind. Let's go, Pete.
All right, question number 1, the elephant in the room. Did you watch the NBA All-Star Tournament?
I didn't watch too much of it, a little bit in and out, to be honest, just so we could give the viewers and listeners a little bit of something. I will say this, and I'm going to give credit to Victor Wembanyama, and I'm going to give credit to a couple of other players that are in there, Anthony Edwards especially, that they kind of went to the players and said, we want to make this thing better. We want to make the game better. If the game is going to get better, it's the players that are going to make it better. So I thought that was a huge step in the right direction for the NBA, quite honestly, that's trying to reclaim legitimacy in so many different ways. So many different ways. So, no, I was in and out on it. I've never been a big all-star game guy. I really don't appreciate it or like it that much. And I just kind of am totally really ensconced in the college game right now because that's where all the action's at. We're ready to head into the playoffs. We're ready to head into postseason conference tournaments, and that's where the action's at, man. So the NBA right now, they got 50-something games under their belt, and you have a number of teams that are already out of the playoffs, a number of teams that can't lose their position as far as the playoffs. So there's not that much mystery there. And having the All-Star game at the 50-something break because they want to throw that cup in there, it just doesn't make sense to me. The other thing we threw out, and we'll keep throwing it out, is that we would love to see the NBA because, excuse me, things heated up last week with Adam Silver. Adam Silver kind of linked into some of these gambling companies and communicating with some of these gambling companies about the tanking. I guess it's difficult to set a line on teams that are tanking. And so his linkage to that had a lot of people on social media calling for his disappearance. Pete and I have talked about this, you know, where the NBA financially, fiscally is in really, really good shape right now as far as the franchises and their worth and their value, and a lot of that has to do with Adam Silver. But it would be difficult to not examine some of the loss of enthusiasm for the game under his tenure. And I think that could be solved easily, but you're looking at a guy that makes $10-something million a year, and he's got a 5-year contract. Do you have the $50 million to get rid of him? Who would pay that? Does the NBA itself have a...
Who replaces him?
Yeah, I think you could do that, though. I could get into some names there, you know, with some people that could easily replace him. But what I learned also a little bit in some of this stuff, and a lot of it, you know, my daughter's doing a sport management class right now. Jordan's doing a sport management class. And on the sport management side of things right now, finance, accounting, those things are really, really important, especially if you're in an NBA situation where you're dealing with salary cap and all of these rules and regulations. You really do need someone up at the top who has that business acumen because it's an entertainment business. Now, do you have to let everybody know it's an entertainment business? I don't know. I think they could do better. I think they could really, really mask it better. I think they could compete better. And I think they could open up the lottery, the draft lottery, to all 30 teams. This is the suggestion I made, is that we open up the lottery to all 30 teams. A, restore legitimacy. B, stop sending the best players to the worst franchises where they wallow in efficiencies and can't get going, can't get their contracts done, and if they're going to do anything with them in the NBA, they got to move them to another franchise. And so it leaves a number of franchises helplessly on their back, unable to get up. But if you've seen OKC and their rise, or you've seen the Detroit Pistons and their rise, it's doable. It just takes better management, but it also takes a basketball sense. And I think that's what the OKC people have with Sam Presti. A little bit of both. A little bit of both. Good question, though, Pete. Let's hit
for the record, I did enjoy the competition format this time with the rookies versus the seasoned vets versus the international players. I did enjoy that. I did watch some of the game and didn't see a lot of defense as usual, right? But that leads me to the second question. Are we seeing the resurgence of LeBron James for a final run, his last potentially 30 games in the league?
So
because he had a game winner.
Yeah, and I've had, now this is 2 weeks in a row that you stepped into one of my segments on the show.
All right, well,
so last week it was tanking.
I watched right, like I watched the game and I watched him come out of nowhere and hit a game winner to eliminate the international team.
And so ESPN had a number of different things that they said. These are the taglines or the storylines of the rest of the season for the NBA. And one of the storylines is, what happens to LeBron James? Is this the end? Are we watching the end? Is there an announcement about the end? Are we going to have a more designed and efficient ending to this, as like in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's career? Or where he went around the NBA for a final year and got, feted and awarded in every single arena that he went to. I thought that was pretty cool. Maybe a little bit over the top, but pretty cool. You got 30 teams out there. But I think it's important, and I say this to people a lot, is to recognize his place in the game for what it is. And if it is as magnanimous and as large as I say it is, or other people say it is, then the ending has to be done properly as well. Just like if you have a coach who's been in there for a long time, but now at the NIL stage and the portal stage, you think that they maybe don't get it, But if they've been with your program for a long time, how you unwind that is really, really important. Because what you'll be doing is you'll be ending the great things about your program at the same time you want to change coaches. You'll be ending the great things about your league and some of those franchises when you take out one of their really, really good players. And so I think the ending, I've always been a big ending guy. Like you can't get me interested in a movie that doesn't end well, that the hero doesn't emerge victorious. I don't know why I like it like that, but I do, And so these stories that you're seeing unfold a lot on the coaching level of the college ranks, where you had, Roy Williams, Jay Wright, so many guys go out of the game at what a lot of people thought might have been early. And what did that impact the game? What was the impact of that on the game? And then you're seeing a lot of, now you're going to see 60-plus jobs maybe take hands in this first go-round, or 35-plus in the first go-round, which will eventually go to 60. That's a lot. And so I think as every single one of these stories is different, but as they unwind, you're talking about how are you going to end this thing as where it's not going well right now. But for the most of the duration, it did go well. It might be your winningest all-time coach. Might be a guy who has a tremendous record, brought you to the NCAA a number of times, went to the Sweet 16. I'm talking about a number of different scenarios. But if you have those scenarios, I think it's important to unwind them properly. And I think that's what really would interest me with LeBron James, is with all of the people around him, all of the media, the entire league in support of him, you're going to have a lot of different opinions about what's the best way to unwind this. But at the end of the day, I assume, if he's still in a little bit of control, is that I assume that it will end when he says it ends, when he wants it to end, how he wants it to end. But I think that there would be some collaboration there, in order to make that work. At some point, that might come out of his hands too. At some point, they may just say, we've tried to unwind this, we've tried to make it good, but now we can't. And now we got to do what we have to do that's best for the franchise. That will come in all of these coaching decisions. That will come in all of these NBA player decisions and in coaching decisions up there as well. As you start to unwind, how much is in the bank? LeBron James got a lot in the bank in terms of cachet. He's the greatest player of all time in so many people's eyes, and he has to be top 3 of all time in just about everybody's eyes, in my opinion. And so Pete and I have talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
And we really are interested in it to see how it unfolds and to see how it all comes to climax, because I think it's so important for our young people also not to see every single one of their heroes carry it out on a sword. I think that's important for our young people, not to see every one of their modern day heroes carried out on a plate. That goes for coaches, that goes for players, that goes for a lot of the things that are around this thing. And these young people these days have really been kind of pushed into a different situation with this as well. And almost every single thing that they trust in right now, these young people, has been taken down.
Hey, I look at it this way. Like John Cena in the WWE said, listen, I could probably go for a while longer and retire out and be maybe a shell of my former self, but I want to go out where I can still go. And he did a year, and that was it. He's done in ring. He'll still be an ambassador for the sport of pro wrestling, but he's done. And I think LeBron has the opportunity to do the same thing.
I think that model, if you say wrestling's entertainment and the NBA claims that they're entertainment, I think that model would work.
Yep.
Where I've said this on the show, you haven't seen a tremendous diminishment in his capacities. You haven't seen him not play well. You haven't seen him be embarrassed out on the court. When he wants to turn it on, he can still turn it on, as evidenced by a triple-double a mere 5 games ago.
Yep.
So I think it's important that they have that. But if he still thinks he has something in the tank, their group is going to be, you need to get some people around me that can help me make this next run. And that was Luka. And that was some of the other players that have been brought in. But at this time right now, the Lakers are not championship competitive. And so does that impact things as well? He wants another one, wants another ring, go out on the highest of highest levels. Is that doable? I don't know. And I would say that if things like God forbid, not God forbid, but let's say the Lakers go all the way. They set this thing so it's favorable and everything goes Gucci, and he goes out on top. Is it good for the game? Is it good for everything? The NBA would probably take another hit for their fixed label, but at the end of the day, that's how he wants it to go, I think. And I think
it's better if they get to the finals and lose.
Just have a good run, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I know that he wants to go out on. You want to go out on top.
If you want to be the entertainment that you're talking about, you leave with your hero not going out on a sword, but fighting the good fight and still not winning.
I could agree with that. Let's hit number 3, Pete.
All right, number 3. Is Miami of Ohio the Cinderella the NCAA needs to distract you during the tournament time?
Now you're into my second segment, Pete.
And what kind of a problem does it pose if Miami of Ohio loses their conference?
Okay. So a couple of years
That's
ago.
a loaded question right there.
It is loaded, but I'm completely ready for it. A couple of things are in that I got to unlayer there. Number one, the algorithm's imploding. The algorithm is absolutely imploding. It's not a good metric. It's a terrible metric, and I'm willing to stand on that. These are weapons of math destruction. So, where is Miami of Ohio in KenPom? In Torvik. We talked about this last week. You got 37 and 31. So if you're picking 37, and of your 31, you're going to have, let's say, 10 of those are from the lower levels. Patriot League, MAC, NEC. All of those teams have automatic qualifiers. Those teams aren't any good. That's why they want to get rid of them. But they're entitled to the tournament because of what's always been the automatic qualifier. So when 31 of those get eaten up, let's say 15 of them are in the top 50 of KenPom. So now you got 35 spots left of the top 50 in KenPom. And every single one of them, as we saw last year when the SEC just unloaded their whole team into the tournament, when they had 14 teams go in, some of them with terrible records, you saw the weapons of math destruction in action. We're going to talk about this in depth. Maybe save it for another show because it's huge. But what's happening is the algorithm is collapsing. It's no longer a good metric. But right now, in answer to your question specifically, Miami is in the 80s. They're 26-0, and their KenPom Torvik ratings are in the 80s. And I've said this on social media. I'm going to say it right here. If they do not win the MAC championship, they're going to the NIT.
Seriously?
If they do not win the MAC championship, they're going to the NIT. There's no way to put them in. You have the numbers laid out. Those are the numbers they're going to go by. The net. That's their big thing now, the net, which is KenPom, Torvik, and somebody else combined. They come up with a mathematical equation. If you sit outside that top 60 teams, you're cooked.
If they stay undefeated, don't the fans riot if they don't get in the NCAA tournament?
They rioted in years past when teams had 1 and 2 losses and didn't get in.
That's insane, though. How can you ignore your eyeballs?
Who beats them?
If UMass didn't, I don't know. See who could.
UMass almost beat them. That would have been a devastating loss for them.
I know.
For Miami of Ohio, devastating. UMass packed the entire gym. It was the greatest game they've had at UMass in years. The place was jammed. The excitement was off the charts. Miami of Ohio came in there, fought, and won the game. Had they lost that game, they would move their KenPom into the 100 range. Okay? Mm-hmm. They would move their KenPom into the 100 range. Here's what I would advise people who are interested in looking into this. Okay, I'm going to tell you why the algorithm has collapsed. You have teams now that are in their league that are positioned 8th and 9th in their league, and they have a better KenPom rating than 6 or 7 teams that are above them in their league right now.
Huh?
I don't want to get into detail with it because
it's later on in the show.
It involves some of our, it is another show, but it involves some people that we don't want to really get in with right now. But you look at the ACC, all right, I'll pick them because I don't know nobody over there really. Not in that way, okay? So take the ACC, all right? Louisville is on a KenPom, on a Torvik, they're top 25. Okay, there are 5 or 6 teams in their league that have better records than they do. Duke up top will throw them out. They're top 5, so it doesn't matter. We're talking about teams that are below this team now. Clemson is below them. UVA is below them in Torvik. So this team that has 7 losses right now and is in 7th place in their league, North Carolina State are in front of them in the league in their record, but on this weapons of math destruction, these guys still look better on that paper. That's why the algorithm has collapsed right in front of their very eyes. I was waiting for this day. I've been waiting to do this research because it's collapsing. Absolutely collapsing around them. And Miami of Ohio at 26-1 doesn't get in. At 28-1, they don't get in. There's no way to put them in with an 85 Torvik number. There are teams that are in other leagues, if you want to look at that. Look at all of the teams that have these monstrous losses that are ahead of Miami of Ohio. They have Auburn up there. They're like 14-12. They're going to be the new Georgia where they slide them in at the end of the tournament as a result of the SEC, just looking to glom up all of the oxygen, all of the money that's in the game right now.
So why the hell have a selection committee then if you're going to do it all by algorithm?
They're obsolete. They're an NCAA selection committee, Pete. The first 4 initials tell you that they're out. They're obsolete. They're fake. They just go in that room and they sit there with that paper and they go, well, their net ranking was, that's how they got all of those teams from the SEC in. This was planned. This was designed. You're watching it now unfold. We told you when we started the show, you and I, what is today, our 145th, 146th show?
Yep.
Something like that. On day one, we told you this was going to happen because it's the reason we actually started the show, because we wanted to follow this madness and the money. And right now, it's all going to the top. And it's by design. And this weapons of math destruction that I talk about are the design implement. This is what they're bringing into the table to let you say that Miami of Ohio isn't as good as Auburn. Even though they've got a 26-1 record and Auburn is 14-12 right now, that team isn't as good as Auburn. That's what they're saying. They're willing to go with the automatic qualifiers and say, go ahead, Fairfield, you're in. Go ahead, Dayton, you're in. Go ahead, LIU, you're in. Go ahead, Colgate, you're in. And then everything else is going to the top. What I predict, and I've said this before, is that eventually a lot of those bids that are in that lower level are going away too. They're going to grab them. They won't have them. Those conferences will not have them. They'll be on kind of like a numerical. You know, like let's say you have all of those bids go away. Okay, even the mid-major ones go away, and they put them all up top. The automatic qualifiers all go up top. All right, or they eliminate the automatic qualifier altogether and go on a straight 1 through 68 of the net rating, which is what's coming. Okay, they're going to eliminate all of those tournament bids that LIU is getting and then say, but if you're 25-0, we'll look at you. We'll look at you for at-large, which means you're not getting in. But that's be the sell. That'll be the tip. It's unbelievable, Pete, but we've been trying to tell people. That's why we started this 3 years ago. All right, Pete, let's get into the Power 15, rocking and rolling. Okay, Pete, there we are. Detroit Pistons, 40-13, head of the Eastern Conference and the head of the big dog right now. In 2023, they were DFL, which means dead freaking last, folks. They were in last place, and they have risen to the number one spot in all of the NBA in short time. In short time. A message to all of those tankers. Start managing your team better. Start doing a better job in the offseason. Stop doing a better job with free agency. Start doing a better job with trades. Okay, and stop relying on bringing these young stars into your program to kill their careers. Stop sending the best players to the worst. Open the draft. OKC Thunder, Pete, 42-14. They got problems. I said this in the beginning of the year, and I'm going to reiterate. If OKC loses SGA, they got problems. Right now, he's out with an abdominal strain, and they're struggling. Jay Williams, J-Dub, has been out as well. He has a hamstring issue, but he's been really, really mired with injury almost the entire year. Okay? If they don't have those two guys, they're ordinary. They're vanilla. They're not an ice cream sundae. They need those two guys to get back in there. San Antonio Spurs, this team, I think, is going to win the West. I think they're going to win the West, 38-16. Wembanyama playing great basketball. If he stays healthy, I could see them winning the West. Stephen Castle, the UConn standout, and Dylan Harper, mixed reviews on his rookie year, but he's going to be a good pro. And they got some really other good players there. They were so good that they could release Jeremy Sochan to the Knicks and not worry about it. I think that might have been a locker room addition. You know, they call it addition by subtraction. You get better because you take out some of the bad. And now the Boston Celtics, Pete, are number 2 in the Eastern Conference. You got to consider, and I said this in the beginning of the year. I've said it almost every show. I was ripping them. I was absolutely ripping them for the way that they dismantled their front line, their team. And I thought Joe Mazzulla might be in a little bit of trouble. Right now, I got to throw Joe Mazzulla at the top of my heap almost with J.B. Bickerstaff for Coach of the Year. This team's rising. This is going to be a really, really big question as to whether they bring back Jason Tatum as well. That's going to be the storyline for the Celtics going down the line here. Denver Nuggets, 35-20. I think they're happy where they are. Position number 3, Western Conference, solid. The Joker's playing well. They just don't have enough depth right now to hang with the Spurs or to hang with OKC. But they could catch OKC in one of those playoffs where they're injured, and if this injury for SGA lingers and continues, this could be a storyline as well. All right, so we got the Knicks at 35-20 as well, right up there nestled next to the Nuggets. I think, having the Pistons, the Celtics, and the Knicks right up top there going to make for a really good playoff. But if anybody's been watching this thing, and again last night, the Pistons went into Madison Square Garden and slapped the Knicks around. They had a playoff last year, 7-game series, where the Pistons took it all the way down to the end and lost at the very, very last minute of the game. It was a great, great series. Since that time, they have manhandled the Knicks this year. Absolutely manhandled the Knicks this year, putting Cade Cunningham maybe into the MVP consideration because he dropped a 40-piece McNugget on the Knicks last night in the Garden. Houston Rockets 33-20. Cleveland Cavaliers 34-21. They are riding Harden. They're riding Harden with Donovan Mitchell. They've had a little bit right before the All-Star break. We'll see if it continues, but they had a 5-game win streak when they added Harden to the team. It's another offensive punch that team was lacking. It was all Donovan Mitchell. With Darius Garland out for as much time as he had been out, it really, really placed a little bit of a heavy load on Mitchell. And Harden is an NBA All-Star, NBA, up there, a very, very well-considered player. I don't know that I would want to play with him because he's very much attached to the basketball, but that seems to be working for them, and the Cavaliers may have punched one there that can get them. Nobody's going to want to see them now in the playoffs, I'll tell you that. The Lakers 33-21. LeBron, let's see what happens in the next, because you only got 30-plus games left. Now you're in the 50s. You only got 30 games left. We'll see how he goes these next 30 games. I think that's what you could see, is he's been saving himself for this end run.
Stretch run,
and
yeah.
He's going to try and get into the playoffs healthier with a little bit more energy in his legs. Minnesota Timberwolves 34-22. I still like this team. I really, really do. Anthony Edwards is a great player, great competitor, and I don't think that anybody wants to see them in the playoffs because of their playoff success last year. Toronto Raptors 32-23. Surprise team. They've held it together, kept their unit, kept all their players together. They got 5 guys that have played, like 200 games together in a row right now with some injuries and some other stuff, but they still have Scotty Barnes, who I just absolutely love. Phoenix Suns 32-23 as well, and the Suns are holding tight. They're going to make the playoffs. Devin Booker out for a little bit right now. We'll see how long that goes. The biggest thing in the game right now, if you look at away from all of the other stuff, that's the fancy bells and all the other stuff, the biggest thing in the game right now is the injury bug, and it's hitting the college ranks mercilessly. All right, let's finish, Pete. Philadelphia 76ers in the playoffs, looking good. One of the surprise teams as well. Nobody, and I mean nobody's going to want to catch them in the first round. Their guards are terrific. Orlando Magic and Golden State Warriors close us out. Really, really, really good set there. The Warriors are hanging on by a thread. They haven't had Butler for a while. I think they're better without him, honestly, because I don't think he helps their chemistry that much. Chemistry right now going down the edge here is going to be really, really significant. Do your players get along? How are the coaches been? 80 games is such a grind. I'm in a grind of 25, and it gets hard. And if you're watching these college guys now, some of these coaches are having full-on mental breakdowns. We're going to talk a little bit about that, where these guys are just, wigging out, and it's hard. It's really hard, especially in today's thing. But what happens also, once they started paying the players, everything got magnified.
Yep.
Everything got magnified. It was always there, but now everything got magnified. People are really, really watching this thing in a way that it's not like you would want to watch it. They're watching it to catch them do stuff wrong rather than watch it as an entertainment value and to really, really love the sport. They're looking for things that are bad because that's what blows up social media. It's rough. All right, before we jump into our college Super 25, which was, whoa, that was hard to do this week. It was a lot of action, a lot of movement. We're going to give you a couple of other NBA things. We talked about it earlier, but silver. Adam Silver is depreciating. I don't know about silver on the regular market, but Adam Silver is depreciating. The calls to fire him this week were as loud and as large as I've seen ever with him, and I think that this link to the gambling stuff is not going to be good. All right, Mark Cuban, formerly owner of the Dallas Mavericks, said, embrace tanking. There's two things at foot right now that are coming out of Silver's office, and they have all these messengers, all of these parrots who come out. One group is now going, oh, the tanking's not bad. There's nothing wrong with tanking.
What?
A little tanking here and there amongst friends is fine. The gambling people don't like it, and they're running the show right now. But there's a whole bunch of other mouthpieces out there going, what's wrong with tanking? I mean, it's sick. It's an anathema to the game. That's what it is. Mark Cuban never dribbled a basketball in his life. Okay? Never dribbled a basketball in his life, most likely. And he's out here going, tanking's fine. Nothing wrong with tanking. Unbelievable. Doug Moe, one of the great coaches of the Denver Nuggets, had one of the best offenses of all time because he was smart enough to stay out of the way when he coached the Nuggets. Very free-flowing offense, a lot of good players on that team, but he just stayed out of the way. He had the greatest line of any coach. He passed away this week. That's the storyline. But he had the greatest line of any coach I ever heard who got fired. He said, here today, gone to Maui. Rest in peace, coach. You were a great offensive mind. Edwards and Wemby saved the All-Star game. That's what the word was. The anti-tanking rules, the NBA is now going to insert them. A little bit late, folks. You already fined somebody $500,000 and another team $100,000. You might be a little bit late on that. Okay. OKC, no SGA, no bueno. Jalen Williams, J-Dub, no good. Abdominal strain and hammy strain, those things can stick around. All right. What's the biggest threat? Here is the ESPN questions that came down. Pete, we'll cover them in the NBA, then we'll jump right into our Super 25. All right. This is what ESPN asked, and I say ESPN asks and Sutter answers. All right. So we're going to give it to you. All right. What's the biggest threat to OKC right now? A, themselves. They're hurt. They have injuries. If they can't figure out those injuries and get back to full strength, that's a problem. That's a threat to them. If you're doing a SWOT analysis, that's a threat. Number two, the biggest threat to them are the Spurs. They beat them 4 times already this year. If they see them in the playoffs, they're going to know that they can beat them. They're going to know that they got their number. Number two, who's the Eastern Conference dark horse right now? I would have said the Pistons might have been earlier in the year, but now they're up top dog. All right, so I'm going to go with the Celtics. I think the Celtics are a really, really surprised team, playing with good chemistry, playing with good tenor, and I say the Cavaliers, now that they picked up James Harden, they might be a team to watch in that Eastern Conference where it's a little bit. And one of the things with Harden that I was interested was, with the Cavaliers, there are stylistic differences in the East and the Western Conference in the NBA. The West had always been kind of noted for their offensive game, wide open court, the Lakers, the Forum, everybody rocking and rolling out in the West. And the East has been more known for a clutch and grab league, a little more physical. The Detroit Pistons knocking the snot out of everybody. They had, a couple of teams there that were absolutely just over the top dirty, So now you have that kind of split, and we're trying to see, where that all figures out for James Harden. Is he going to be okay in the Eastern Conference going down here with another 30, 35 games, getting clutched and grabbed a little bit differently than he was in the West? So far, so good. That was a question for me. All right, Zion for dollars. They have this guy locked up in Pelican Land down in New Orleans, and he has to play 41 games in order to get. And so guess how many games he played so far, Pete?
How many?
41. He's at the number. Once they implemented that into his contract, he was sitting out, hanging around. I'm not going to play. I'm not going to do anything, collecting huge, huge money. If he didn't make 41 games this year, he doesn't get his $16 million. All right? Here was the piece about LeBron that I didn't throw in, Pete. He's right now on a $52.6 million contract. $52 million. That buys a lot of other players. Also, he did take $2.7 million less than the maximum when he could have gotten, $55 million. He took $2.7 million less in order to help the Lakers get other players. I just don't know who you're getting for $2.7 million. What did that do? That might have been Bronny's contract. All right. Tanking, it's an anathema to the game. It's an absolute disaster for Adam Silver as well as a commissioner to have 5 or 6 teams completely out of the playoffs at the All-Star break, now all on social media openly talking about how do we get to number one? What are our odds to get to number one? And if we pick this player to go with all of these players, what does it look like? I'm going to tell you what it looks like. It looks like garbage, the same garbage you have going on right now. Let me explain it to you. Put A.J. DeBonsa on the Nets. What does that do for the Nets? Nothing. It won't make them any better. Put A.J. DeBonsa on the Lakers. What happens? The Lakers might win it all. Put A.J. DeBonsa on the Pelicans. What happens to the Pelicans? Nothing. Same thing that happened to the Jazz when they put Ace Bailey there. Same thing that happened to the Wizards when they put Alex Sarr there. Nothing. They're bad. They can't elevate through draft. That's what I'm trying to tell people. You can get all the picks you want, but you can't elevate through the draft. You need to elevate through the way the Pistons did it, by free agency and trading and getting some guys on your team that balance your team out well, instead of having all of these young guys around that are just getting their head kicked in every single night. Open it up. Adam Silver, you want to save your job? Open it up. All 30 teams, unweighted, a spectacle on ESPN, restore legitimacy because everybody thinks you rigged it in the first place, and then allow the players to go where they're drafted. So if you have the Cleveland Cavaliers come up with the number one pick, that's who they get. If you have the Sacramento Kings come in at 25, that's who they get. And that's the way it's got to work, because right now, this is an anathema to the game. When I say an anathema, that means it's a killer. It means it's absolutely terrible for your league. Even the gambling people are saying so. And if they're saying so, I don't know. All right, here we go. They went back at it last night after the All-Star break. The Celtics went into the Warriors and won 121-110. Very good win for the Celtics. I'm very impressed with them. Pistons 126-111 over the Knicks. Here was the game we were talking about with Cade Cunningham. 42, 8 rebounds, 13 assists. Unbelievable. Here's the tank in the bank. Wizards versus the Pacers last night. The Wizards go in and clock the Pacers 112-105, and they were euphoric in Indianapolis. They were happy. Said, we can't win this one. It used to be, how did we lose to the Nets? And then it's like, how did we not lose to the Nets? It's unbelievable. Pete, let's shoot into the Super 25, please. There it is, baby. I had to take Arizona out. We had Arizona maybe, I don't know, Pete, what do you think? 6 weeks?
Oh, easily.
Easy 6 weeks, number one. And they were really good. You know, their losses that came just recently, I mean, look who they lost to. They've had some really, really incredible games. And they had a good little bounce back against BYU last night. BYU's gotten punched around too. And we're going to talk about that. But there's 2 injuries right now that I want to illuminate before I jump into the Super 25. Went on last week. Richie Saunders, BYU, first play of the game, goes diving out of bounds for a ball, blows out his ACL.
Oh, jeez.
Jacob Toppin of Texas Tech just blew out his knee. So these are major, major players on really, really good teams that are looking to get into the NCAA tournament and make a run. Here's what I will say. I'm really, really excited about DeBonsa as a pro, more than I am Darren DNP Peterson. Because if you watch Peterson the other night, and this is unbelievable to me, that he hit a shot and then motions to Bill Self, get me out. And Bill Self turns to the bench, grabs a guy, and out he goes. And it's amazing to me, one of the top 5 coaches in the game today is sitting there listening to this kid who says, take me out, I don't want to play anymore. And then he puts him back in. And he says, take me out. Puts him back in. He says, that's all I can do. And they're talking like incessantly. And they're embarrassing themselves out in Kansas with cramping. He has the flu. He has all of these things. Just tell him like it is. He's collecting your money, so he waits to go to the NBA. He's collecting your money and hoping not to get embarrassed, because if he does, he ain't going to be the number one. If they cut him loose, he ain't going to be the number one. There's no way in my mind he's the number one. I wouldn't even put him in the top 5 right now. I like guys who play. I like guys who don't wave at their coach and say, get me out. You're in a basketball game, man. You're competing against the world. You're competing against the best players in the game. And every single time that game gets a little tough, you say, take me out. How is that the number one? And why hasn't that changed anywhere on those boards? Cooper Flagg, no matter what he did last year, was number one on every single board. Every single one. And nobody changed them. And now you have Darren Peterson on almost every single board, and people aren't changing them. Why? Are those boards done by the NBA? Are those people paid by the NBA to do those boards? Because if you have a lot of people with a lot of different opinions, that board would be a lot different at the top, especially for a guy who doesn't play all the time. And you have him as your number one. The Bonsa just lost his best teammate, Richie Saunders, and he's out there killing it last night against Arizona, trying to bring that victory home. That's the guy I want. That's the guy I want on my team. I want Cam Boozer. Kid who's leading Duke right now. That's the guy I want, not the guy who waves at one of the greatest coaches in the world and says, take me out. I don't want that guy. Nope. You take him. All right, Pete, let's shoot it. Michigan, we had to. I get a lot of heat on social media from those Michigan fans. They're crazy. I love them, but they're crazy too because they didn't see that Arizona had a better strength of schedule than they did. They didn't see that Arizona was undefeated for most of the year like they were not. And to be honest with you, I think as they get into it, the Big Ten is going to be a little tough. We'll see how it goes, but right now, 25-1, you have to consider Dusty May to be National Coach of the Year. Number two, Duke. All right, they have 8 top 25 victories. Stop it right there. Yep. 8 top 25 victories. If they had one more loss, if they hadn't lost that game just recently to Carolina, I'd have them number one. I absolutely would. Arizona, we moved them down a few spots, but those losses are credible losses on the home floor or on the road. I mean, it's rough. You know, they went into Kansas, played against that Kansas team, and it was a great game. Really good game. But they did lose it. So you got to bounce them a little bit, but I didn't bounce them that much. Houston, 23-3. People wonder why I'm critical of Houston. It's because they didn't play an away game until 1-3, and that was at Cincinnati, and that's in their league. So that non-conference schedule, Pete and I call them cupcakes and cannolis. Man, that was
lots of home cooking.
That was a Carvel cake, man, with all the crunch inside. Gonzaga, 26-2. I watched them the other night. Graham Ike, all of you guys that are out there doing your draft boards, you better move him up. The kid can ball. And Gonzaga's very, very good. What a great coach. Love him. Iowa State, 23-3. They were cooking with gasoline, but took 2 on the chin last week. That's a rough league. That's a very, very rough league. Iowa State at 6, Virginia at 7, 23-3. People are discounting the job that this guy's done. People are discounting the job where they are positioned, where they are right now. And again, how Louisville has a better Ken Pom or Torvik rating than UVA right now at 19-7, and these guys are 23-3, and they play in the same league is beyond me. It's beyond me. And I'm going to wait to see when they get matched up. Coming soon. I think that's going to be a good game. All right, but again, the algorithm has imploded, folks. The algorithm, the weapons of math destruction ate themselves. All right, Virginia, Nebraska, 22-4. Love this team. I like their coach, and I love the intensity that they play with. Teams that bring that intensity have a better chance at winning than teams that don't. And you're seeing Nebraska rise, looking at an Auburn with a whole lot more talent than they have, but Auburn doesn't defend. Auburn doesn't stop people. Nebraska plays D. They get after it, and they stop people. That's why I got them 8th. Illinois, 22-5, the biggest lineup in the country. They're huge. They're big. They're talented. They can shoot. Watch this team. They could be an Elite 8 team. No question about it. UConn, 24-3. Good question the other day was, somebody said, where do you see them in the NCAA tournament? Are they a Final Four team? Are they an Elite 8 team? Are they a Sweet 16 team? And I was really impressed with that question that somebody posed to me on social media. I'd have to say right now I see them as a Sweet 16. Because this thing at the top, if you add all those conferences together, Big East, ACC, Big 12, SEC, Big 10, it's hard to put them in where they wouldn't have 8 teams better than them right now. We'll see what happens when they step outside the Big East, but they got cracked by Creighton the other night at home, and that loss kind of showed because this is what happened to them last year. They have guys on their team that cannot defend. Great offensive talents, but they have some guys on the team that struggle on the defensive end. And when you want to beat UConn and slow them down, you directly go at those guys.
Hey, guys, you're not in the NBA yet.
You're right. You directly target your offense, and nobody better than McDermott to do that. Check out McDermott's record against Coach Hurley, too. It's pretty darn good. All right, so we got to keep rolling here, Pete, but we're going to go with, St. John's.
How about Michigan State?
Michigan State and St. John's in the 11 and 12 here. Michigan State's very, very good. They're just kind of lacking a little bit, and they have this kid, Jeremy Fears, on their team that's, he's I don't want to say this either, but Tom Izzo coached Draymond Green too. And so I don't know whether the dirtiness that comes out of this program is program directed, but he's had some plays where he was like Grayson Allen for a while there, tripping guys, bumping guys, picking up technical fouls. I think that could backfire on them a little bit. Could. I don't know. We'll see. St. John's, I'm impressed with them right now. After the win at UConn, that seemed to bolster them. That seemed to give them a little lift in their shoes. Good win against Marquette the other night. The Big East ain't the Big East, man. It ain't what we're used to. It's not as good as it once was. St. John's will now rise, probably win the league. Them and UConn will separate from everybody else in the league. Okay, Purdue, 13. Watched them the other night, too. They got some issues. I want to see them get more into Trey Kaufman-Renn. I want to see them get into him a little bit more. Their big guy inside's pretty good, but they're very guard-oriented, and I don't get that right now. North Carolina at 15, they're holding on. Just got a great signing. Dylan Mingo is going to go to North Carolina. I think that keeps Hubert Davis, right where he needs to be. I like Hubert Davis. I don't want to see him get canned, but I want to see, them return to their glory days of being Carolina too, because right now they're a little bit of a step off that. I think they could defend better also. Miami comes in, 21-5. This guy, he should be considered for ACC Coach of the Year. Jai Lucas, it's his first year. And I've been critical of guys going up to that level when it's your first year of coaching. He was an assistant at Duke for a long time, and I think they got it going on there in Miami right now, though. I love their guards, love Trey Donaldson, and love Malik Renault. Clemson, 20-7. They've done a great job. This is another algorithm cheat. All right, these guys are in like second or third place in the ACC, and they have Louisville in front of them on the algorithm. Terrible. Brad Brownell's a great coach. They're going to make the NCAA tournament, and they'll probably get a lower seed because of that number. That's why you see all of these things happening in the NCAA tournament as well. The algorithm has collapsed. So an 8-team Clemson is going to go up and get somebody in the 3-hole. They're going to get somebody in that top bracket because they're well coached. They're a very solid program. And when you go up against this guy, you got to be ready. You got to pack a lunch. All right, Pete, let's keep rolling. BYU. My guy, DeBonsa is so good, but with Saunders missing, it really, really puts a dash on some of their hopes. I don't know, but if I'm going to ride anybody, I'm riding A.J. DeBonsa all the way home. I love this kid out of Brockton, Mass. Love what he brings to the table. Love his intensity level. He's the number one overall in my mind right now. Vanderbilt took it on the chin a couple of times. They were undefeated. Now you got 5 losses. This is what I want everybody to see. Non-conference went swimmingly. Everybody was excited. Then they got to their conference and got punched in the nose, and this is where you're at. This is what you're seeing. Kansas at 19, the people in Kansas don't like that. Bill Self doesn't like that. But if they could ever get this guy, Darren Peterson, to play all the time, they'd be a top 10 team. They'd be a top 5 team. But the distraction that young man has caused to that team, that's the biggest problem there. is the distraction that he's brought to the team by separating himself out from the other guys. And this is now when you go near any of these top 5 guys, any of these top 10 guys who are one-and-dones automatic, be careful. Be careful. Caveat emptor. Be careful what you buy. You might get Jaden Quaintance. You might get Darren Peterson. Or you might get A.J. DeBonsa. All right, let's keep rolling it, Pete. Tennessee, Barnes, keep an eye on Nate Ament. And this is a thing I wanted to say last week. Kind of skipped over it. When we're talking to these guys who do their draft boards, all right, don't look at the snapshot, because Ament had a couple of bad games there. That he looked terrible in the Carrier Dome in Syracuse. They lost that game. He looked terrible in that game. But then I've watched him since. I want the whole movie. I don't want the snapshot. The snapshot on Nate Ament, if you took it in Syracuse, wasn't a good one. If you've been watching him recently, he's top 10 on your board for sure. Tennessee, 19-7. Barnes, I think this team's better than they're showing. I really do. I don't know why they're having trouble, but I think they're really, really good and talented. I would like to see how they get placed in that tournament bracket, see what happens to them in their conference play. You got St. Mary's. I love this team. Bennett the other night went in. Monster game. I got to watch the entire game. Really, really good team. Tough league. Everybody thinks, oh, it's not. It's tough. It's hard. They're in with Gonzaga, people. It's a good league. All right? We got Utah State, Pete. Love these guys. Some people in our job, in our business, they call them weekend at Bernie's jobs, meaning that you could put a dead guy in there and they're still going to win. And so this is one of those jobs, Utah State. And what they have been able to do is they've launched a lot of coaches onto the national stage. They've been a mid-major program that launched a lot of coaches onto the national stage, big time. St. Louis, this team, man, they took one on the chin the other night, and it was at Rhode Island, and it really didn't hurt them that much in their KenPom ratings, but this is what the A-10 is up against right now. If St. Louis loses in the A-10 tournament, they're probably still going in. And the team that wins the automatic qualifier will go in. That's how they'll get 2 bids. That's the only way they're getting 2 bids. Same thing if you go Miami of Ohio doesn't have St. Louis's number. So if Miami of Ohio loses, they're out.
Yeah.
So those conferences really, really got to weigh this right now. And Akron is a really, really good team in the MAC. You got to keep an eye on them. John Groce, good coach, good solid program. And another team that I'll throw out for everybody is the University of Massachusetts. They gave Miami of Ohio all they could handle. They've given everybody in that league all they can handle. They get into that mix of the top 8 there because the MAC only keeps the top 8. If they get into that mix, they're going to be good. St. Louis is very, very good. All right, Pete, Miami of Ohio, we'll throw them in. You know, Alabama, I got down there in 24. 19-7. They shoot way too many threes for me, especially with the athleticism that they have. I just don't get it. But Miami of Ohio, 26-0. How can they be in the 80s? How can they be in the 80s? I'm not saying top 25, but how can they be in the 80s of an algorithm? Now, they played 3 non-Division I teams. So did a lot of those other people. But the algorithm is punishing these mid-majors in a way that's totally uncool and in a way that's totally almost borderlines on fraud. I'll leave that there. All right, Pete, here's the weapons of math destruction that I was talking about. We got about 6 minutes. Teams that have not fared well, and these are because of the weapons of mass destruction. All right? UNC is 6th in the ACC. They have a rating from Bart Torvik of 30. Louisville is 7th. They have a rating of 15. BYU is 7th. They have a rating of 28th. They're 7th in their league. Michigan State is 5th in the A-10. They have them in the top 16. Auburn is 12th in their league. 12th. And they're 37th by Torvik. Here's what we were talking about with Louisville. 19-7, they're number 15. They're 8-5 in their own conference. Now, Virginia, 11-2. NC State 10-4. North Carolina 8-5. Clemson 10-4. Miami 10-3. Listen to their Torvik numbers. Virginia is below Louisville. They're 11-2. 23-3. They have an 18 rating. NC State 23. UNC 30. Clemson 31. Miami 44. And they're all better than Louisville in their conference. Richie Saunders of BYU out for the year, ACL. Shire on fire. Got a little action here, Pete, in the college ranks on the baselines. Shire on fire. When North Carolina beat Duke, that's crazy rivalry. I mean, it's as good as it gets and as bad as it gets. So North Carolina storms the court after the game. They won, beat Duke, stormed the court. John Shire went out and said that one of his staff members got punched in the face when all that melee was going on. That was, to me, a little bit of a deflection at his press conference. Sometimes when you have these guys at press conferences, they're willing to say just about anything to draw the light away from the fact that they just lost the biggest game of the year.
Yep.
But the DA came out and said that Shire should exercise more restraint in his public comments because they can't tell anybody who's been punched. They haven't seen a record of anybody getting punched after that game. I did see some water bottles in the air, but I didn't see anybody getting punched. I didn't see any of that. And Shire's claim kind of hanging out there because they haven't produced the guy who got punched. They don't have a guy with a black eye. They don't have anybody sitting there. I'm sure they got a guy in a room in Durham right now. They're punching the lights out of this guy, and they're going to bring him out in 2 days and go, this is the guy who got punched. Okay, the guy Dylan Mingo, North Carolina, that's really going to help. He's a top 10 recruit for them. It's big. Powell, the big man Powell, got a 3-game suspension for taking out one of Rick Pitino's guys. Okay, unbelievable. He went, it was a breakaway layup. Guy was going in for a layup. It happened to be this guy who played for Providence previous. And so there was some bad blood there. This guy didn't play for Providence previous. He was a new player. Came out and absolutely dirty shotted Dylan, the guy from St. John's Harper. Okay, bench is cleared. Things went crazy for a little while. 3-game suspension for Mr. Powell. I think it's deserving. I would have maybe liked to seen it gone a little higher. Pitino made an interesting comment when they said, why did your bench clear? When that happened, everybody left the bench, and there was a number of players that were ejected, and he basically said that's how we have to respond to something like that. And I don't know that I disagree with it, but that's where we are in college basketball. This is Michigan's first time atop the AP poll since 2013. Pretty cool. Richie Saunders, joined by Jacob Toppin. He was an award-winning nominee of the Wooden Award, and now he's out for the season. His future, what he'll turn pro or stay at Texas Tech, we're not sure. We're not sure. All right. Charlie Baker has reiterated his support for the expansion of the NCAA tournament. He gets several $1 million a year, and it seems the only time he has anything to say is when it's on this Fugazi expansion of the NCAA tournament. We got 2 40-piece McNuggets for you, Pete. This young man is really moving up the draft board. Darius Acuff of Arkansas, and we're also talking about Josh Hubbard of Mississippi State. The other night had 10 threes. 10 threes. Pete, I got 1 minute, I think, right?
Yep.
All right. I want to close with this because I like to close on a high note. All right? This is really cool, I think. All right? We have a guy from Creighton who visits UConn, okay? Josh Dix. Josh Dix's mom passed away just very recently after a very difficult bout with cancer. Heart-wrenching. He's playing this year, having lost his mom. Everybody's heart goes out to this young man. I want to shout out and give a real shot to Danny Hurley, his staff, all the people at UConn who had a moment of silence at their home court for Josh Dix's mom. I thought that was super cool, super first class, and really something that what sports is all about. Josh Dix went for 21 and Creighton beat them. Creighton now may be playing with some new emotion. as a result of that because they want to pick up their teammate. But I wanted to leave it with that, Pete, because that's some cool stuff.
Yeah.
That's what we do this stuff for. Kudos to the UConn people for doing it. Tough loss, but you made yourself look great in that loss. You made yourself look magnanimous in that loss. And that's something that we should all aspire to. Pete, we're going to see you next week. It's going to be hotter next week. We're in the zone, folks. We'll catch you next week.